So it's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Robert Gilman. Dr. Gilman began his career as an astrophysicist, got his PhD at Princeton, and spent several years doing research and lecturing. But he became increasingly aware of what was happening on this planet, and his concern for that grew, and he decided that the stars could wait, but the planet couldn't. And he shifted his attention from that galactic scale to the personal scale of how can we each live lightly on the planet. And he and his wife, Diane Gilman, they moved to Sequim, Washington. They built a passive solar house with composting toilet and grew their own fruits and vegetables and started to connect with other like-minded people. And this grew into the founding of Context Institute at the tail end of the 1970s. And not too long after that, in Context magazine, they started to publish that. And in Context, they addressed the many facets of the human experience, from architecture to agriculture to education, politics, gender relations, climate change, and took each of those and found examples of how they were being approached in a more humane and sustainable way. In Context, published for many years, and then in the late 90s, Robert's partner in life and work, Diane Gilman, passed away from a brain tumor. And that led to a time of very inward focus. And so shifting from the personal to the global to the inner scales. And then Robert emerged from that time really engaging in his local community, the city of Langley, and served on the city council there with a focus on how to engage the local community, empower residents, and look at the city scale, how can we look to be more sustainable. And with that, also working regionally with the Washington Council of Cities. And more recently, Robert's attention has focused on a rebirth of Context Institute and refocusing at that global scale and looking at the big questions of where do we want to head and how can we close the gap between where we're at and where we would like to be. So I've introduced Robert, but I didn't introduce myself. And I'm Celeste Gilman. I'm Robert's daughter, and it's really a pleasure and a privilege to be welcoming all of you to this evening's event. There will be some things in the presentation that are new to me, and I'm looking forward to those new kernels. There are things here that I've recently been learned, and things that I have grown up with my whole life. And I have found this to be a wonderful framework for my own personal journey and how do we respond to the great challenges that face us as a species. And so I'm very pleased to be sharing that with you, and I hope that you end today feeling uplifted and encouraged about the role that each of us can play in this next phase of the human enterprise. And with that, Robert Gilman.